Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christian Camacho, and I serve as the Springtide Ambassador Program Leadership Fellow with the Springtide Research Institute. I am 24 years old, and I'm coming to you today from Memphis, Tennessee, where I serve as the coordinator of the McLaughlin Social Justice Institute of Lasallian Practice, as well as aide to campus ministry here at Christian Brothers University. Today, we want to offer a warm welcome to our new Springtide Director, Dr. Tricia Bruce. I'm joined by two other Springtide ambassadors, and together we're going to share a conversation so everyone can be introduced to Tricia and hear more about her passion for this work. I was honored to serve as the Springtide Ambassador Program representative during the panel interview stage of the director search process, and I was accompanied by members of the Springtide staff and Research Advisory Board. It was great to first meet Tricia then, and I'm very excited about what's to come with her on the team. I'd love to have the other SAP members in the conversation introduce themselves next. Viva, did you mind going first?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Viva. I'm 21 years old. I'm from Winona, Minnesota. I just graduated from college, so I'm currently working in Winona as the arts administrator for the Winona Symphony Orchestra, as well as teaching some dance and music lessons at a local conservatory. Because I'm big in the music world, I just wanted to share that I play piano, bassoon, and saxophone, among other instruments.
Awesome. Thank you, Viva. Gabrielle?
My name is Gabrielle. I'm 24 years old. I'm originally from the Bay Area, but I currently live, work, and go to school in Los Angeles, California. I'm in my final year of my graduate studies in theology, and I currently work at my university as well in the marketing, communications, and external relations division. I'm also a music minister on our campus. I sing in the choir and I cantor at our Sunday morning liturgies. I'm so happy to be here with you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabrielle. So as you all can see, we have some star-studded SAB representatives here. That's great that we have them here today for the Zoom call. All right, so now going to throw it over to Viva. Viva, would you mind opening up with our first question?
For sure. First of all, welcome, Tricia. It's so nice to meet you and get to chat with you like this. Can you share a bit about yourself and why you wanted to join the work of Springtide?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for this conversation. Just really thrilled to be a part of this today and also a part of something that is much bigger than myself. So I appreciate all that you put into this work and so many who are thinking about these really urgent questions, which drives my participation in this. So my name is Dr. Tricia Bruce. And, to go back, way back, as far as I recall, I have been someone driven by curiosity. So really, I've always been curious, kind of looking around the corner, watching, observing, trying to think and understand how people tick, how societies tick, how things work. And I think part of that came from being a child in the military. My dad was in the Army. We moved around lots of different places. We lived in West Germany at one point, and I was constantly put in situations that were largely unfamiliar and new, and it required a certain skill set that meant trying to figure out what was happening and also what was different, and what do those differences look like. And in that, for me, religion was really a constant and also a constant curiosity, what religion meant to me, to my family, how religion was a place that was there wherever we went, but it looked different and it had different forms and different people. And so that really drove some of my initial interest in being a sociologist of religion. And that led me down a path whereby I majored in sociology and communication as an undergrad at Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas, went on to get my PhD in sociology from the University of California, Santa Barbara. From that time, moved over to Washington, D.C., worked for a while with the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate, CARA, at Georgetown University, before joining the faculty of a small liberal arts college, becoming a tenured professor there. Fast forward to this moment, though. So this opportunity to join Springtide as a director is really an extension of much of the work that I've done that has such an applied and public focus. So I think not only about the sociology of religion from an academic per se perspective, but really, why does it matter and to whom and for what? And how do we translate that kind of knowledge and understanding in ways that make sense to people who are thinking about it through the lens of practice and application and understanding that goes beyond the sort of theoretical crux that we may approach our work. So why Springtide? I'm driven by the excitement that comes from this research institute that is squarely dedicated to this work of research, but also research in the context of communication and application. So thinking about young people through this perspective of, hey, are we listening? What are we learning? What are we hearing? Even if sometimes it means hearing things that are unfamiliar or that we may not even relate to. There are many different ways and experiences that I think come from genuine listening that can allow us to better understand who we are as a society, who we are together, and think through ways to be better as people, ultimately in a society that we all share and live in together.
Tricia, thank you so much for sharing some of your background with us. It's great to hear. And you began to touch on it a little bit, but I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about what compels you about Springtide's mission when it comes to giving voice, listening to, and amplifying the experiences of 13 to 25-year-olds.
Yeah, I love that question, and including yourselves. And so I think part of that answer is obvious already in that listen to the gifts of what we have right here, even in this Zoom room. But thinking about it through the perspective of sociology, I would say that listening in general is one of the things that social science does best or can do best, but it's often one of the things that we as a society do not so well. So when I think about using the tools then of social science to think through the experiences of 13 to 25-year-olds whose experiences are often read as mysterious and unfamiliar or unknown, even to those who are in that age range. Am I like everyone else? Am I different from others? How am I understanding what I'm going through? And social science grants these kinds of tools to do this authentic listening to 13 to 25-year-olds. The other thing that I think of quite a bit is just the unfinished nature of young people that is sort of inherent to a generational and age cohort, meaning that oftentimes, particularly in social science, but also in society in general, we look to things that we know and sort of stable quantities like categories or labels or terms or understandings. And those things often can be treated as real and finished in ways that maybe aren't fully genuine to what they are. But when we study young people, all of a sudden it starts to sort of question assumptions and maybe reinterpret things that we thought we knew or look for new meanings or new understandings. And asking those questions and the kinds of things that we hear and learn tell us not only something about who we are and what we are today, but also act as a harbinger for who we are and what we are in the future. So I can think of nothing more exciting than to have a research focus on young people that is really at the core of how society thinks of itself and where it's headed in the future.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you, although as I look at the question is everything that you had just mentioned to us. My question is, what fascinates you about the intersections of sociology and religion? And just hearing from what, when you were opening, it seems like you were surrounded by this stuff all the time. So I guess out of all the different things that fascinates you about both, what's one thing, I guess, that fascinates you about the intersections between sociology and religion?
You were totally right that it is absolutely hard to choose just one, in part because that intersection really is at the core of the very foundation of the discipline of sociology. A lot of the early classical thinkers are folks who are immersed in religion in one form or another. Maybe they had a parent that was a minister or participated in some way, or were thinking about deep philosophical questions. And yet, ironically, sociologists have also historically resisted sometimes a focus on religion. with a rhetoric around secularization or the irrelevance of religion. But for me, I keep coming back to exactly your point about religion is everywhere in many ways. This is something that we cannot close our eyes to. We cannot be blind to. I sit here in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, and I have two very vivid depictions of religion right in front of me. One being the cathedral up on the hill. Actually, it's a historic church. It's an old parish. It's actually the first church in Knoxville that was founded by Irish immigrants way back in the day and marked the place in a particular way. But it's also visible by the train station, which if I look the other way, I can see the train and the train station. And in fact, they installed a clock on the church in order to help the people tell time in the train station when it was largely used as a passenger train. And I think too of the train, because when I have been able to have conversations with folks on the research advisory board, one of our board members there said for him, his sacred space was the train, this sort of moving place of where religion is. So whether it's in a church, a train, a place, nature. I live near the Great Smoky Mountains. Religion is saturating our circumstances, our contexts, our communities, and our identities. And for me, that is, there's nothing more fascinating than that to keep asking questions about.
So along that same line, can you share a Springtide finding that you find to be really important to understanding Generation Z?
Yes, and there are so many, and in fact, this is one of the really neat things about research is that we're trying to sort of uncover details about what is, and try to understand and sometimes it's surprising, right? And sometimes it also tells us what we're not seeing. So I'll pair a couple findings here that I think are particularly useful to think through for me and for all of us in this work. And this comes from research that we have coming out really right now. This is hot off the press from one of our latest studies that focuses especially on sacred moments. And there are two little bits I want to pull here. One is that in this survey that was used for this particular report, we identified that about a quarter of young people have experienced a sacred moment online. Okay, so in a digital space, about a quarter have experienced a sacred moment in some digital space. And I pair that with another stat from that survey, which is that nearly a third of young people say they have never participated in a religious or spiritual community. Okay, so you have two sort of counter indicative findings here. One, that the realities of religion in terms of these sort of traditional communities or congregational type spaces, maybe those don't play as large of a role in young people's lives as they once did, although they still do certainly for many. And then you also have the emergence of new and different kinds of spaces, including online spaces where young people are thinking through religion. And if you think about these findings in contrast to, say, 10, 50, 100 years ago, wow, what a different reality we live in today. And what that says to me too is that we need different tools as social scientists to study that reality. And we also need to question our assumptions about what we think about young people's experiences, young people's meaning making, how and what religion means to them. So I think of those findings both as something that is as an exciting finding for now, but also a rubric for the future and how we continue to listen and listen well to these new kinds of experiences young people have in the world with religion.
So looking to the future now, and as you step into this role, what are you most excited about with all that Springtide has coming up? Thank
you. I love that question. And I have to say it brings to mind too, I'm a parent of two. I'm a parent of an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. And one thing for folks who are parents, a question that you hear all the time is or the advice of savor every moment, it goes by fast, which I think has absolutely been true. And also the saying of, well, it's really wonderful at any given moment, but it's also really hard at any given moment. Every stage is really wonderful and really hard. And not to overplay the metaphor, but Springtide is in a really exciting stage in terms of its development. It's sort of gone through toddler stage. Springtide was founded in 2019 and is really emerging from some of those early, really important years of development and into a new stage of identity and growth. And it's also, as much as it's new, it's also building on a very old and rooted Lasallian heritage that goes back some 300 years. So in that sense, it's really exciting to think about the future of Springtide and being a part of the future of Springtide at this moment where it is really poised to go big, go bigger, and think about how it can have the kind of impact in pursuit of its mission in ways that are really meaningful. And also, I would just add, it's young people, it's listening, it's learning, it's trying to get it right that excites me, and working together collaboratively with an awesome team to be able to do that.
So thank you, Dr. Tricia. I appreciate that. And I'm so glad that you are at least familiar with the Lasallian mission of Springtide, and definitely the community aspect is something we take very near and dear here. It's always great to see Viva and Gabrielle for our ambassador meetings. It's always good to catch up with them with their crazy lives and education. So it's awesome. So thank you. Well, before we go, Dr. Tricia, our question, another question to you to throw back at us. Do you have any questions for us that we can answer?
I do. I mean, I have many questions, but I will just limit myself to one, which is, in order for us as Springtide and me as director of Springtide to listen well, that means listening to you all. And so in light of that, do you have advice for me as I step into this new role and season with Springtide?
I think any advice I would give you, you said it already. I think when working with young people, and what I love about Springtide is there's a posture of humility that's required, this ever willingness to be surprised or to be proven wrong or to be presented with the unexpected. And that comes with listening, which are all things that you said over the past several minutes that we've shared together. So I think letting that openness guide you, and it's something that's ingrained in the Springtide mission already. I mean, we're here because we've responded to that, and will continue to under your guidance.
Thank you.
My advice would be pretty similar to Gabrielle's, and I think you yourself had bits of it in some of the answers that you were giving, but it really is this listening, going beyond just like the statistics and, oh, this is what young people say, but really finding individuals, finding communities, and creating that connection with them so you can learn from them directly and have that personal connection, that interpersonal relationship with our generation. I think that's something that Springtide as an organization does so well. And it sounds like you're going to do a great job with that going forward.
Great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I ever since I first met you, I figured what would be good advice to bring to Springtide. And I mean, just from the ambassador program perspective, I would say, there is a lot of unknown. There was something that you had mentioned, unfinished nature of young people. I've personally haven't heard that, and I resonate with it because as someone myself who is just by that bracket of the cutoff of 25, I do think that I'm like, well, I feel like I should have my life together, but I feel like there's a lot of things still learning. So I would say definitely holding that we all have unfinished nature within us. And of course, your patience and acceptance and conversations help out a lot. More than, you come to a SAP meeting one month, we'll be talking about it for about 2-3 months later. And it is nice. And so I would say that would be my advice for you.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to take this to heart, and I will continue to invite and ask for advice. So I appreciate opening the line of communication, because ultimately this is not about me. This is about us. This is about the we and the world that we share together. So thank you for the collaboration.
Awesome. Well, that's the time we have for today. Thank you again, Tricia, for your presence here with us and willing to talk with us. We're so thrilled to have you be a part of this community. Really do emphasize thank you for your commitment to Springtide and that core value of community. We are very happy to have you be a part of our community, and we look forward to learning more from you. And yeah, thank you, Viva and Gabrielle, for your time today. And I hope to see you guys on not this Thursday, but next Thursday for our Springtide Ambassador Program meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.